Blizzard just keep on failing. They move from PR blunder to PR blunder with little agility and less grace, and today they've done it again. And this isn't a massive story on a geopolitical scale, but it is a severe violation of good faith. It's them acting in a manner that I do believe is deplorable. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another industry report. And well, for somebody who started off as a World of Warcraft YouTuber, this sure has been a fun few weeks, and with today's story, it's not stopping, as Blizzard have recently drawn the ire of a wide segment of the World of Warcraft esports community, and of myself, for their handling of the AWC and MDI prize pools. They essentially misled people into dropping cash on supporting a prize pool, only to reveal that Blizzard themselves are not contributing to the prize pool. Well, later in this video, you'll actually see how some of their wording absolutely backfires on them in a damning way. Okay, so the AWC and the MDI are WoW's two big esports competitions. The Arena World Championship is the PvP component, and then the Mythic Dungeon Invitational is the PvE component, and that's where teams race each other through the game's near infinite difficulty scaling dungeons. Now, both of these events have many different stages throughout the year, but they do of course culminate in a massive showdown at BlizzCon, which is of course in just a few days. Now, this should be the pinnacle of the non-raiding competitive World of Warcraft scene, but well, what's happened here has really just thrown a spanner in the works. Okay, so at the start of the year, Blizzard announced that they would sell in-game toys through the store, and that 25% of the purchase price would go towards the tournament prize pools. Now, this is a very common practice in gaming. It's one that Valve do with Dota, and it's one that Riot sort of do with League of Legends. Now, here's how Blizzard worded it, and do note the wording here because it's extremely important. For a limited time, 25% of the proceeds will contribute towards the year's final LAN event prize pool for the AWC and the MDI, with a guaranteed minimum prize pool of 500,000 USD, 250,000 USD for each event. Your support will help take the WoW esports prize pool to the next level. Okay, so Blizzard said the minimum prize pool would be 500k. Now, in line with audience expectations from, say, Dota, players would have expected that this meant that Blizzard would put in 500k themselves, and that then fan purchases would bolster that to give us a bigger prize pool. Now, note that the wording here is ambiguous, and it doesn't literally say that, but still, the point here is that 25% of the earnings would go to the prize pool, and you'll see how that technically is and isn't the case. Like, it technically is, but sort of morally isn't. Now, note here that Blizzard basically would have had to have had 500k ready to go, committed to this, in order to make that statement originally. So the update to this story is that it was announced that the final prize pool would be 660k, and many people thought this meant $500,000 from Blizzard and 160k from the player contributions. But no, and this is the bombshell. Cloud9's players Chan and Snuts confirmed what actually happened, and note that their information here, it comes directly from Blizzard. It's what Blizzard said to them during a meeting with the teams pre-BlizzCon. The 660k prize pool is 100% money from Blizzard selling the toys. It's money from the player purchases. Nothing from that prize pool is from Blizzard. When Blizzard said there would be a minimum prize pool of 500k, what they actually meant is that they would cover any gap in player funding. So if the 25% of toy revenue came to 300k, they would chip in 200k in order to bring it up to the $500,000 mark. Here's the thing though. That's just not normal practice within gaming. Even though Valve's The International ends up with crowdfunded prize pools in excess of $34 million, Valve always, they contribute their $1.6 million baseline price. So what that means here is that what Blizzard did is just incredibly scummy and downright misleading. They were going against standard practice, so they should have worded that clearly. They could have, but absolutely chose not to. Indeed, they announced a minimum prize pool of 500k. Now, given that the last year prize pool for one of the tournaments was 280k, and that they were now running two, the 500k did make sense. It seemed pretty darn clear if that was the base prize pool of the event. So did the 25% of revenue go towards that larger prize pool? Well, I mean, yes and no. It went towards Blizzard not paying the 500k they said would be the minimum prize pool. Now that entirely goes against the spirit of such a system, and it does really, it just came to the shock of many people who purchased these sports toys. I mean, even just for comparison, the AWC last year had a 280k prize pool from Blizz. This year, Blizzard put in 0 and had their fans do it instead, all while misleading fans into thinking they'd be propping up the announced base prize pool. I mean, this is how they ended up wording it. Your support will help take WoW esports prize pool to the next level. Note the word help. Players did not help the prize pool, players were the prize pool. They absolutely were just playing into the aspirational angle, knowing that large esports prize pools validate an audience's involvement in their game's esport. And to be honest, I'm flabbergasted at just how downright horrible this is from Blizzard, how disrespectful it is of their players, that they aren't even willing to contribute to the prize pool of their own game's largest LAN. What's wild then is that Blizzard's StarCraft II war chest is actually very upfront about how it works. It's completely honest. It says that the first 200k from the pass will be added on top of the event's 500k prize pool, with additional money going towards production costs. That's crystal clear. Very much unlike what they did with World of Warcraft. They totally sold this as like WoW's esports efforts being on the rise, and that they were giving players the chance to propel the prize pool to new heights, yet all they did was use that passion to cut their own costs. The thing is though, they did it all on a technicality, all in fancy wording. Their purposefully vague, misleading announcement does allow them to get away with this, though I've got to wonder if a reading of the word help kind of invalidates that point or that defense. Now, when this was announced over in my World of Warcraft channel, I told the audience there that I thought this was basically just an attempt to sneak in more cosmetic microtransactions to the game. Now, many people said, no, that's wrong, and it was a way to support the esports. But seeing how almost all of that was profit, because it was actually offsetting Blizzard's investment in their own tournament's prize pool, I think it's pretty darn clear what it actually was. I'd also like to bring up the value proposition here. Take Valve's Dota Battle Pass, right? They put an incredible amount of work into that. It really is quite engaging. It's full of rewards, there's stuff to do, there's even player cards, unique mechanics that are tied into the tournament. It's pretty much the best Battle Pass experience in existence. So you can see why 25% of the earnings from that has led to their $35 million prize pool for 2019. Now, compared to what Valve offer, Blizzard's offering is just pathetic, being less of a product and more of a donation, though I wouldn't be surprised if they started selling the in-game toys at about the same price. I mean, really, WoW is kind of renowned for having expensive macro transactions after all. There's then another angle to remember here. LoL and Dota are free-to-play games. World of Warcraft is not. It's got a box price and $15 per month subscription fee, and that does make it an insanely profitable game, one that's also deeply monetized through its macro transactions. So it really is scummy, and there's not much more in this video in terms of analysis, right? Blizzard just did something incredibly scummy, something misleading, and something that I mean, especially as compared to, say, how they run their own StarCraft 2 stuff, or how the rest of the industry works, just really does look bad. And it's important to call this behavior out, especially for me, as my largest channel is World of Warcraft, so it's extremely important that I'm actually fair and reasonable there. And, you know, I've got to wonder, like, was the WoW esports budget trimmed, maybe with the company-wide cost cutting, and this is their response to it, or something like that? But ultimately, I don't really think there's any excuse for how they've handled this, and how they have not been clear with players, especially as contrasted to how they were very clear with StarCraft 2, and how, I mean, they use the word help. Help the prize pool. Help also implies that it's you and them, whereas actually, it was just you. And there you go, that is another example of Blizzard being an incredibly scummy and disappointing company, one that is clearly trying to shed the goodwill that they managed to accrue over decades of making quality games. I mean, they sure are doing a masterclass in bad PR. So there you go, that's this video. Let me know what you think about this topic down below. Thank you very much for watching, and with that, I will see you next time.